Here we go, we got a little Derringer here, and this one is actually chambered in 38 special, so it's what they consider a big bore. It came to me, had a piece missing. Well, actually, I guess you wouldn't consider it missing. It's just not where it's supposed to be. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure what this piece is. I mean, I haven't really taken a look at it yet, but just from looking at the schematics, which let me tell you are very extensive on a Derringer. It's a complex, fickle little beast. I'm being facetious. But anyways. So, does anybody hear about whatever's going on with FPS Russia? And the ATF raiding him and his father's place? There's something going on. If he's innocent, you know, best wishes for him. So, we got a little piece missing. Little American Derringer. I don't know how well you can see. We'll try and zoom in. There we go. Pretty neat little gun. So we'll rotate that down and it actually flips up, which is a little different from some of the ones that I've seen. These guns that get a lot of gunk in there, I like to try and clean them out before I put my screwdriver blade down in. A lot of times as you back these out, you just push that little nut that's on the other side on down, and it ends up just spinning. So you gotta get your finger down there and hold it. And see in there. Now I do notice two more pieces that look just like that one. See them down in there? So we'll set those off to the side. What I'm doing here is I'm threading that in there so I can pull that little nut out of there. There we go. I want to clean underneath there because a lot of times they'll rust up and cause the grips to end up with some rust on them. So now we have 3 parts. That are not where they're supposed to be. Gotta sound like I'm from Fargo there. Oh yeah, Margie. kind of funny. What is it? What did I say? Sort of funny looking, in a general sort of way. All right. I digress. So we know that those pieces came out of there. We've got our hammer here. I'd say the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove our barrel. Get it out of there. See if this screwdriver will fit it. No, it's going to be a little bit too big. I love these little pads. They grip real well, and they give a little bit so I can press down into it. It's a little stiff. There we go. You can see it looks like someone has attempted to get that the plate that goes around the firing pin. Someone's attempted to take a scribe or a screwdriver or something and twist that or twist it off. So maybe someone believes that the problem lies within there. The way this whole thing works, if you're not familiar with them, on your barrel, this is actually an ejector for your rounds. Once your cartridges, once they've been spent, you can press that with your thumb and eject them. Well, it doesn't sling them, it just picks them up so you can pull them out of there. So we'll leave that alone for right now. Next thing we're going to remove here is going to be the cam spring, and I believe that where these pieces are coming from is what they're calling the cam. It's down as part of the hammer mechanism, and I believe that they have broken off of the cam. And what I'm removing right here is considered the cam spring down here. I may have to hold the, it's got a nut here on the back of it. Get my little pliers in there. And I'll have to grab my small wrench set to put that back on, because whenever I go to tighten it, I want to make sure that I use the right wrench for it. I believe I've got one that small. Teeny tiny. Something else I just noticed here. See right down there? Fairly recently someone's had that spring out. They either did that getting it in or out. Just grab it with pliers. Prime. candidate for the ultrasonic cleaner. Our hammer pin, once you have the spring out, you should just be able to push it. Here's your hammer assembly. There we go. You got a pin right there where it hooks in. Not really a pin, it's just where that piece attaches. Very, very dirty. That spring will probably need to be replaced. Our trigger spring, or our trigger pin, right there. You're going to want to tap it through. Trigger pin. I'm going to go ahead and remove this so the trigger will clear it. There's your trigger. There's a trigger return spring there. Now, these two springs are very similar in size and diameter. I'd say they're probably the same spring. I'll tell you in a split second. Springs, they're saying they're different. We're talking about the selector spring and the trigger spring. They are showing a different part number, but they look exactly the same and they measure the same. So I'm not going to worry about it. Definitely a prime candidate for some ultrasonic cleaning. Alright, the part that is broken in here, it was the cam. And that cam originally would ride right there on that lip there. It went right around there. I'm going to put this all in the ultrasonic cleaner. You can see where someone's marred this up already trying to get this apart. Before I get the firing pins out of there and everything, I'm going to let this thing get down the ultrasonic cleaner and loosen all that dirt and grime up. Make my job a little easier. Forgot one part. Go ahead and remove our ejector. If we're going to clean it, we might as well clean it all. So what I'm doing right now is trying to find a screwdriver that'll fit. There we go. Now on this little Derringer, like what I had shown you all just a little bit ago, you can see where somebody has really gotten in there and they tried to get those plates off of there. Well, what we're going to do is get them out of there the right way. The first thing that I've done is I put this down the ultrasonic cleaner, and that ultrasonic cleaner really gets down in and lets you, it'll get a lot of that, I call it dirt glue. It's where it's just got dirt and just, you know, for however many years of stuff getting caught in there, it's glued it. That helps a lot. A little penetrating oil will help. Q20 makes a good penetrating oil. Then the other thing is just knowing how to get it off of there. First of all, you've got to get the firing pins down and out of the way. If you see the bottom one, actually it will be this one here. See that firing pin is depressed and down? See this one, it's protruding? Well, this firing pin is kind of stuck in the outward position. What you need to do is you need to get something to hammer that down. I'll use this larger brass punch here, and I actually stole this little block from my daughter. It's a little foam block, but situations like this, I'll use it like a shooting bag, how you would grip it up, but that gives me a base, it gives me something to hold against. And by doing that, it'll let me grip it in there and hold it. And I'll take my punch, put it right on top of that firing pin, and this is a brass punch, and give it a tap. By giving that a tap, it's dislodged it. Now it's still not down as far as what it could be or needs to be. There. Still trying. Makes it very hard to do this while I'm holding it so you all can see. But that's alright. See if I can find a screwdriver that will work properly. I don't know if you can see, but I'm working it back and forth. I'll have to dress this up a little bit. I'm going to spray a little bit more penetrating oil. We've got it broke loose. Alright, now this is not a gunsmithing screwdriver, but it happens to fit pretty well. As you know, I'm a big proponent of using the proper gunsmithing screwdrivers, but in a situation like this, I assume it's from already being marred up from somebody else trying to work on it, but it just so happens that this non-gunsmithing screwdriver is working better. So we'll go with it. I'm going to have to clean these up real well anyway, so I already know that for sure. There's one. And the firing pin. Put those over here. They sure are nasty. Now this one's going to be a little tricky because that firing pin is still protruding a good long ways. Alright, now something that I've done here, I'm going to use the torch on this again, and it's usually a common practice to take some type of rag or something to wrap around whatever your piece is so you don't mar it in the vise. Well, a rag will burn if I'm using the torch, so what that is, that's actually a copper plate. You know, just sheet copper that I use, and you can form it. It's malleable. It won't mar anything, and it works real good. You're not going to burn it up. So what I'm going to do here is throw the heat to this. You want to try to not necessarily heat the plate itself. You're wanting to heat the frame of the gun around it. Able to go a little bit at a time. I'm just having to heat it and work it, heat it and work it. It is slowly coming back out of there. I've marred that plate up a good bit farther than it already was, but that's okay, it's just the plate. I've made a tool, and I'm just having to take it a little bit at a time. I don't want to get it too hot, so I'm having to heat it, work with it, let it cool. Heat it, work with it, let it cool. And you got to be careful to not let it slip off, and I don't want it to get onto the gun itself. The plate's not a big deal, but I don't want to mar up the gun any more than it already is. Woo! I think we got it. That's a tough one, guys. Goodness. Here's what I did to make a tool. I took just a screwdriver that was about the width of that. I put a notch in it, and then I straightened the sidewalls. And even with that being said, you know, it still slipped off of there, and it got some marring. What I'm curious about is I mean, the threads look like they're in great shape. I don't see any reason why it was on there so tight. Must have just been carbon buildup. That's all I can see. We'll let it cool. I just wanted to show what, looking at this, there's nothing in here that would lead me to believe that caused it to be so hard to get in there. The shiny part you see in there, that's from the very edge of my tooling as I was hammering it around. So I'll clean all this stuff up. I hate it that it was gouged, but the majority of that was done prior to me. Any other galling down in there was just, you know, I guess whatever was gluing it in there. It must have just been carbon buildup. The firing pin looks like it's in decent shape. So what I'll do is I'll probably see if I can find a couple more of these plates here. The schematics that I show actually show the upper and lower plate as being one piece. So I need to do a little research, see if I can find. If I can't, I'll refurbish this and I'll make it look good. Here we're going to try and clean some of this up. What we're doing here is just testing. Just make sure that everything's going to thread in and fit up. Now that we know that they both fit, pull them back out and work on dressing this up. Now this is aluminum, and I taped it off and hit it with glass beads just to kind of make it look a little better where someone screwed it all up. So now I'm going to take a little bit of some Oxfo blue. It will blacken it some, and then I'm going to rinse it off real quick. Actually, I'll use a brush. A brush is going to work a little better. And there we go. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll rub a little, be able to rub a little bit of that off of there. And actually, I'm going to put just a little bit more here in this corner, right in there. There we go. I was looking over the parts list here and noticed that I was missing a pair of springs just as I took everything apart quickly. And it's the two firing pin springs, and I looked down inside of the cups, and I'm replacing these cups. These are the old cups. But down inside of there is the two springs that have been collapsed. completely collapsed. And those suckers stayed in there even through the ultrasonic cleaner. Here in the Derringer, went ahead and got some new, I actually didn't fabricate these springs. These I ordered specifically for the Derringer. They were just a particular size that I just wasn't able to come up with something that was going to be right. And so, what we're going to do to put these firing pins back in, I blasted and cleaned that up, and we've got our firing pins, 2 firing pins, 2 springs, and 2 plates. Springs are together here. I'm going to set one of each of these off to the side, and then we're going to put these in. We're going to drop our firing pin down in. We'll do the bottom one first. Get it to drop straight down in there. Now you can take your spring and put the spring inside the tail of the cup there. Now I'm going to use some purple Loctite. Just an absolute, just a small dab on the threads, just as a little deterrent for anti-vibration. I mean a small amount. Well, that just fell. Let me grab it. Alright, we're back here. Well, I'll be a son of a gun. Let's just do it this way. We'll put the spring over there. That makes sense, doesn't it? I'm trying to do this where you guys can see. There we go. And this is not a gunsmith specific screwdriver. This one just happens to be one that fits better than the other ones. This is one that I made a gap in to clear the firing pin. Gonna have to do a little bit more work on that. Gonna have to back it back out. The firing pin's getting pressed down by the cup here. Just a very small amount of this purple Loctite. We're going to put the ejector on. This is the breech face here. This is the muzzle down here. There's our ejector and ejector screw. You see it's got a shoulder on it down there. That's so it can slide in this slot. Put a little bit of lube. I prefer a little red Loctite right here on the threads, just a little dab. Little thinner screwdriver. What I need. There we go. Put our hammer back together here. Get the cam and pay attention to the direction that the cam sits. See your waves? New spring I fabricated up. And our sear. Spring. You got a hole right there that is going to go into. It's going to fit down in there, and you got to get that spring down in there too. Now, while you're holding that pin down in there, you're going to need to take that spring and push it down and over, because right in there is a recess that'll fit in. There we go. You want to put the cog on. If you go to put it on and it doesn't want to fit, spin it, and it will spin it and it'll clip right into place there. And you can set it off to the side. Now we're going to put the hammer in. A little bit of lubrication here. Hey! Wouldn't be me working on something if I didn't drop it. What we're going to need to do, on your spring you'll see it's got a wide open end and a narrow end. The wide open end will go over the top part. Bottom part, and they'll slide together. Now, I like to hold it by the side, and we'll go right down in here at the top. It's going to fit right down here in the bottom in a little recess. Now with that, like that, well, take your hammer, and right there, that is going to go right into that hole there, that recess. Hold it together and slide it down in where that cam stays in. And get it down in the recess. You can see right in there as I move that hammer. There you go, you see how it goes. Take your pin, slide it through. There we go. Take your trigger, and this is a newly fabricated trigger spring. Go right in there. Your trigger is going to slide right down in there. There we go. Watch this hole here, and that's where you'll line it up so the pin can go through. There's that. We're going to put our safety selector here. A little bit of lubrication. A little bit of lube. I'm putting a little bit of lubrication here on the detent hole. Right there. That will let it go right over that. That was tight. Now I'm going to back it off some. Back it off some more. There we go. Had to back it off some so it will allow this to go over there. The selector ratchet spring is going to be the next thing we install. And this is the back, and it's going to go like this. It's held on there with a screw and a nut. And what we'll do, go ahead and put some Loctite on. Slide that on there and run the screw up. Yeah. Get a good screwdriver to fit here. There we go. Well, trying to hold this where you guys can see, but it's just not going to work. Y'all are just going to have to miss out. You want to make sure to keep this spring lined up. There we go. Gotta take a little bit off here to get it to fit back together right. also had to, I filed on the inside of these two tabs here just a little bit with a small flat file, just to clean it up to where we had a good mesh here. What happened was when I pulled the barrel out, this aluminum receiver, it just kind of bowed in a little bit, and so I just cleaned it up. And you don't want to make it where it's easy to go in. You want it to still be rough, or not rough, but you want it to be kind of hard to get in there. See how you don't want it to swing around on its own. You want it to be tight. Alright, tighten that up a little bit. Now I'm going to put a little bit of wicking grade Loctite on that. I didn't use normal because I don't want to run the risk of getting Loctite on the spring and everything. So we'll take a little bit of the wicking grade. Let it get in there, and we'll wipe it off, and we will be done. And that is the Derringer 38. We'll give this Derringer a little test here. Make sure you keep your hands out of the way of the barrel on these, because they have been known to have problems with the firing pins hanging out and fire whenever people close them.